Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
Whoever had killed Della Brown had taken advantage of her. The killer appeared to have found her extremely intoxicated, passed out in the street, unable to fight back. She had no defensive wounds. The body of the 33-year-old Native Alaskan was dumped in a small, dirty shed located near an abandoned home used as a drug house. She lay face down in a pool of blood, her head badly beaten. She was exposed. Her pants were pulled down. A group of young men gawked at Della as the hours went by. In court testimony, the public heard about Della's sad end. Her life had been hard, and she was feeling depressed after the childhood trauma piled on. She had been given up for adoption as a baby. When she was young, she had been sexually abused. Della first became a parent when she was barely just a child herself. And at 33, she was the mother of a son and a daughter, according to court testimony. As an adult, Della struggled with her sobriety. At the time of her death, she had been living in a trailer park with her boyfriend, with whom she had a volatile relationship. Many remembered Della fondly. One good friend said she was adored in the neighborhood. Della's biological mother, with whom Della had reconnected, was broken-hearted by her death. Della loved to fish and flashed big dimples when she smiled, her mom told the Anchorage Daily News. There was one obvious suspect in Della's murder, a 20-year-old man named Joshua Wade. According to several people who testified, he was seen with blood on his hands and his clothes around the time of the murder. Just like Della, Joshua suffered horrible childhood abuse. After being raped repeatedly in daycare as a little boy, Joshua attempted suicide at age 10. He ended up in a mental hospital for 3 months, but according to his attorney, he wouldn't get regular therapy to help him cope. Now, as a young man, Joshua was angry. I understand I wasn't born bad, but at some point in my life, I just decided that I wanted to be bad, and that's all that I saw myself being, he later said. Joshua was well known to law enforcement. His criminal record started at the age of 12. By age 19, that criminal record included a felony for a weapon charge. Now at 20, he was the main suspect in Della's murder. There were reports that Joshua, who was white, hated Native Alaskan women. Joshua denied it and said that wasn't true. The media jumped on the title of serial killer to describe him. Plenty of people had stories to tell about Joshua in September 2000. A group of 20-somethings in a gang known for committing robberies and other crimes were hanging out at a mechanic shop over several days. Joshua, a newcomer to the group, was there too. Several people said they saw blood on him and heard him brag about brutalizing Della. Some said Joshua showed them Della's body, which right away was a red flag, because how would Joshua known Della was hidden in the shed if he hadn't put her there himself? Here's what prosecutor Mary Ann Henry said in her opening statements when Joshua stood trial in 2003.
Joshua Wade had come upon Della lying in the street earlier and knew that she was unconscious and vulnerable and was in close proximity to the crime scene at the time of her death and decided to visit the filthy shed multiple times after spotting Della on the street and became agitated after a visit to the shed and was seen with blood on him at the time of Della's death, described Della's non-fatal injuries with great accuracy, injuries in multiple locations that could not have been easily seen with the condition of the body in a dark shed, and knew that the large cut on Della's throat didn't kill her, even though she died lying face down in a pool of blood, and described exactly the type of blows that actually killed Della Marie Brown. Later brought people to see the body, admitted to killing Della Brown, and ran from the police and tried to hide out.
But this wasn't a slam dunk case for the prosecution by any means. The state had hardly any physical evidence. No fingerprints tying Joshua to the crime scene. None of his DNA was left behind. No hair or semen found belonging to Joshua either. The prosecution's case hinged on Joshua's confessions, caught on a court-approved wire, and the testimony of several witnesses. The people who heard Joshua's confessions all had criminal records of their own, another headache for the prosecution. Many of the state's witnesses testified wearing inmate uniforms. The prosecution had trouble controlling these witnesses, who battled with the defense and had outbursts in the courtroom. Even the secretly recorded conversation wasn't conclusive evidence if the jurors were expecting Joshua to be clearly heard saying, "Yes, I killed her." At one time in the wire, Joshua can be heard saying if the police were smart, they'd find my condom wrapper. Although Joshua later said, "I never raped nobody, dude." The recording was hard to decipher, and the defense cast doubt on the informant's motives, saying they were clearly looking to avoid prison themselves and cut a deal with the state if they helped bring down Joshua Wade. And the prosecution also encountered sheer bad luck during the 10-week trial. One day, court adjourned early because of a series of plumbing problems flooding the second floor and requiring that toilets and elevators be turned off, according to the Anchorage Daily News. And prosecutor Marianne Henry, the voice you heard giving opening statements just now, didn't last through the trial to give closing arguments. Alaska's first ever female homicide prosecutor got ill and dropped out of the trial proceedings. She was replaced by Assistant District Attorney Marcel McDaniel, who had never worked a murder trial before, the Anchorage Daily News said. Perhaps the biggest challenge for the prosecution? Joshua Wade's spirited defense. In opening statements, defense attorney Cindy Stroughton was aggressive. She argued Joshua talked a big game and pretended to be a tough guy. Yes, he may be a liar, but that did not make him a killer. She insisted the case wouldn't have even gone to trial if it wasn't for Joshua's boasts to strangers, friends, and on that surveillance recording.
And he wouldn't even be here if he didn't have such a big mouth and some kind of need to blow himself up to these acquaintances and gangbangers from the street life. Joshua Wade found Ms. Brown's body, and she was already dead.
The false bragging, the supposed confessions show why Josh is here, she said. But when you evaluate what he did and didn't do, along with all the other evidence, you will see that he's innocent. Joshua became the easy suspect. She noted that, yes, Joshua had accurately described Della's injuries to his friends, but because the nature of Della's injuries were obvious to anyone who saw her body.
And after he found her, he went back to the garage and told the big lie. Like the boy who cried wolf, he was trying to puff himself up into something they would respect. Josh falsely bragged that he was the one, but everything he said was made up from what he saw, not what he did. Anyone who saw Ms. Brown's body could see that she was beaten. This was a bloody crime scene, and it was obvious that she had been beaten in the head. And anyone who saw her could say she had been raped. Her pants were down, there were no underwear, her genital area was exposed, and anyone who looked could see the cuts on her neck and leg. Ms. Brown's body must have lain in that shed for a full day, during daylight as well as nighttime hours. Anyone who saw her could say the things Josh said and could add some details of his own. These men all probably took a good look and then went back to the shed, to the garage where they were hanging out, and fueled by beer and R&R whiskey, the story got bigger and bigger.
There was one thing the defense agreed with the prosecution on. Della's murder had been horrible, but they insisted Joshua Wade was not responsible.
It is an inexcusable crime, one that needs to be solved, and the man who committed this horrible crime must be brought to justice. But this young man, my client, Joshua Wade, is the wrong man. This case shouldn't even be in trial because the state has not solved the crime yet. The state went for the easy and the obvious suspect instead of working to find the truth. The memory of Della Brown, her family and loved ones, the Alaska Native community, the Anchorage community, and all the residents of this state deserve better. They are entitled to have the police solve the crime, to find the whole truth, and to have the right man prosecuted, not Joshua Wade.
Neither the prosecution nor the defense had any idea how much was at stake when Joshua's trial began. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 252, part 1. The prosecution showed photos of Della Brown when opening statements began in Anchorage, Alaska in 2003, 3 years after Della's murder. The first photo of Della was when she was alive with her long dark hair and high cheekbones. Now, this is a murder case, and as such, you're going to be seeing some photographs that are going to be disturbing. Prosecutor Mary Ann Henry warned as she's shown jurors a second photograph of Della.
Here she is at an abandoned shed on 33rd and Dorbrand in Spenard. Now, this is what we know about the last day of Della's life. According to the medical examiner, the tox reports reflect that she had consumed some cocaine at some point prior to her death. She had also consumed a lot of alcohol prior to her death. The blood alcohol level for her blood was 248, and other tests went as high as 302. That's over 3 times the legal limit for drunk driving in the state of Alaska. So she was extremely intoxicated. We also know that she had sex before her death. There was semen found in her vagina and in her anus. It appears that she may have had consensual sex before she was murdered and then either dumped or passed out on the street near the shed where she ended up murdered. There was no evidence of forced sex. There was no evidence of a struggle. She was dragged into that shed. She was beaten on the face. She was beaten in the head. She was cut in the legs and on the neck. And she was left to die.
According to the prosecution's theory, you couldn't see Della's body from the street, so the fact that Joshua claimed to find her in the shed was particularly damning. The prosecutor warned jurors up front not to expect much physical evidence from the court testimony, and the defense used that to its advantage. The defense went on the attack. Defense attorney Cindy Stroughton told the jury that there was a lack of meaningful physical evidence against her client.
The medical examiners collected semen from Ms. Brown at the autopsy, and the state tested it for DNA. It is not Joshua Wade's DNA. Now, the state told you in their opening that Josh said on the tape that he used a condom. Well, the police searched this shed thoroughly. They searched it the day Ms. Brown's body was found, and no condom was found. And the remark that Josh made on the wire is the same wire where he tells the informant that he just got back from California, from San Diego, which the police knew very well to be untrue. The semen that was found in Ms. Brown was motile, which means relatively fresh, and you will hear medical evidence about that. There was a fingerprint found in blood at the crime scene. We tested it. It's not Joshua Wade's. It's not Ms. Brown's. Hairs were collected at the crime scene. They're not Joshua Wade's hairs. Fibers were collected from the crime scene. There's no connection between the fibers and Joshua Wade. The police searched Joshua's home thoroughly, found nothing connecting him to the homicide, and they searched his car thoroughly, and again found nothing connecting him to the homicide. No hairs, no fibers, nothing from his house, nothing from his car. This case shouldn't be in trial. They haven't solved it yet. They haven't found the killer. They're prosecuting the wrong man.
With little physical evidence to go on, the prosecution relied heavily on witness testimony, especially from Joshua's acquaintances, who said they heard him confess to the crime. According to the prosecution, what Joshua told them matched with the findings of the autopsy results, more proof of his guilt. Prosecutor Henry methodically gave the jury examples.
Some witnesses saw or heard some things, and some witnesses saw or heard others. This is basically a summary. Some of the witnesses were with Wade when he saw Della Marie lying in the street in front of the shack. Wade said that he went back to rob her. Some of the witnesses heard Wade say that he kicked and hit her. Some of the witnesses saw Wade with blood on him when he returned to the shop. Now, what's going on that evening and for the next several hours or days is that there are some of the friends of Joshua Wade's or acquaintances are working on cars at a shop that is near the shed where Della Marie Brown was found. And Joshua Wade was in and out of that shop, and at one point when he came back, several witnesses saw blood on him when he returned to the shop. Wade described how he tried to cut Della with a dull knife. He was agitated and excited when he returned to the shop. He told people that he had killed Della Marie Brown. He showed some of the people Della Marie Brown's body. All right, witnesses in the car, Jesse Ackman and Wayne Clevenger, describe the woman that Wade saw in the street as drunk and unconscious. Joshua Wade asked Danny Troxell to help him move the body, but he wouldn't. The medical examiner will testify that Della had died while laying on her stomach, but she was found on her back. She had been moved. Joshua Wade told Wayne Clevenger that he used matches to look at Della Brown's body, and this is an awful picture. Matches were found on her eyelids and in her hair. The defendant told Jonathan Walker that he wanted to cut Della Marie Brown's throat, but had a dull knife, so he practiced cutting her legs to see if the knife would work. And there's a cut on her thigh, another cut above her knee. Joshua Wade told Dwayne Clevenger and Jesse Ackman that he tried to kill Della Marie Brown by cutting her throat. And notice there are cuts on her throat. Joshua Wade told Jonathan Walker that he cut Della's throat multiple times. He told Dwayne Clevenger and Jesse Ackman, quote, "The bitch is tough, she just won't die." There are some multiple cuts on her throat. They are not fatal wounds, but they are not easy to see. But once again, we find that the injuries on her, those cuts on her, are consistent with exactly how Wade described it. Wade told Dwayne Clevenger, Jesse Ackman, Jonathan Walker, and Daniel Troxell that he killed Della Brown by beating her skull in with a rock, multiple blows to the head. This diagram shows several of the injuries to the skull and to the face. And the medical examiner is going to tell you that she died by multiple blunt force injuries to the head. And according to the medical examiner, these fatal injuries, these multiple blunt force injuries, are consistent with using a rock. The defendant told Jonathan Walker that he raped Della Brown. He repeated this on the wire that he did with Beckett and Troxell. Della Marie Brown is found with her pants pulled down to her ankles. Wade told his friends that he raped her after she had been beaten because he said the adrenaline got going and that's when he got excited physically. He also told his friends that he used a condom, and that is why there is no semen from Joshua Wade in the body of Della Marie Brown.
The words of Joshua Wade were going to be used against him. After showing the jury the photographs of Della during their opening statements, the prosecution played a recording. Joshua hadn't known he was being recorded. It was a court-approved wire. Timothy Beckett and Daniel Troxell, who were acquaintances of Joshua's and weren't close friends of his, had secretly recorded their conversation with him 4 weeks after Della's murder. The two men wore wires, and there was a device also placed in their truck. On the recording, Joshua can be heard telling Timothy and Daniel that what he did to Della was sick. But Timothy and Daniel weren't the most ideal witnesses. There were questions about their credibility. Timothy Beckett, for instance, was a convicted robber. He was awaiting sentencing for 3 armed robberies, all at the same place, the Barnard Hotel. He was also convicted of a home invasion robbery and a felony assault. Timothy had made a deal with the state, Prosecutor Henry openly acknowledged.
He did make a deal with the state of Alaska to testify at this trial. And he gave police statements and grand jury testimony before he committed the robberies and before he got a deal from the state. And you also hear that in addition to this, his agreement with the state is that the sentences in the federal case will run concurrent or at the same time as any sentence that he gets in the state case. There is no agreement as to a sentence. However, it is assumed that the federal judge will be aware of what Mr. Beckett cooperated on in this case in deciding whether or not to reduce the sentence.
When it was the defense's turn, Joshua's attorney, Cindy Stroughton, argued that the wire was wishful thinking from the state. The wire wasn't solid grounds for the jury to give Joshua a guilty verdict, she said, pointing out that Joshua told several lies on it. You couldn't believe anything he said.
There is no confession on the wire. Joshua never says he killed Ms. Brown on the wire. He says, that's her. That's the woman in the shed. But he doesn't say, the woman I killed. He never says he hit her with a rock. He never says he raped her. In fact, he says he never told anyone he raped her when Beckett brings it up. What you will hear on the wire are other examples of Wade blustering and puffing about things the police knew at the time weren't true. So what things should you look for when deciding if this supposed confession is true or false? Here are some factors. Are there any eyewitnesses that connect Josh to the crime? No. Is there any physical evidence that connects him to the crime? No. Is there any scientific evidence connecting him to the crime? No. Is there physical or scientific evidence that excludes him? Yes, there is. The DNA and the fingerprint. Is there any self-supporting detail on the wire? Does Josh say anything on the wire that only the killer would know? No. Is there better evidence that someone else committed the crime? Yes, there is.
If Joshua Wade didn't kill Della, then who did? The defense revealed 4 theories of their own. One potential killer? Della's boyfriend.
The first other person who may very well have killed Ms. Brown is her battering boyfriend, Rudy DePeace. DePeace is a classic woman beater, a batterer. He isolated Ms. Brown from her friends and family. He assaulted her repeatedly. He threatened to kill her. And later, when I tell you more about this, you will learn that this continued right up until the time she died.
Or it could have been alleged gang member Timothy Beckett, the state's witness who worked with police and secretly recorded Joshua on the wire.
The second suspect, this man, Timothy Ian Beckett, Romeo, the leader of the GTS gang. Beckett is an admitted gang member, the leader of the GTS gang, Good Boys Trey Serrano. Ms. Henry forgot to tell you that 3 of the primary witnesses you will hear are the founding members of the GTS gang. Beckett and his first lieutenant, Daniel Troxell, founded the gang, and Peaches McCune, Jonathan McCune, was in at the beginning as well. Beckett is a convicted armed robber who cut a deal with the state in exchange for his testimony, as has Troxell and McCune, the other gang members. But Beckett's actions are very suspicious. And when you hear more about how he repeatedly injected himself into the police investigation from the day Ms. Brown's body was found, you will understand why he may well be responsible for her death. And when you hear the recording of Beckett, he thinks it's a big joke. He's manipulating the subject of the investigation, and he's trying to ensure that the wire comes out incriminating Joshua Wade and not himself.
And the defense had another man in mind, Gregory Poindexter, who was responsible for a string of rapes against Alaskan Native women. Could Poindexter also be responsible for Della's death?
And now a summary of the evidence against the third suspect, this man, Gregory Poindexter, a serial rapist who targeted Alaska Native women just like Della Brown. A rapist and an angry, violent man attacking women in Anchorage during exactly the same time frame that Della Brown was killed. Poindexter has been convicted of attacking and raping 5 other Alaska Native women. He brutally raped a woman the day before Ms. Brown was killed, and he raped a woman the day after. And he had a very distinctive rapist style that I will tell you about in detail.
Joshua's attorneys had wanted to call Gregory Poindexter to the stand, but Superior Court Judge Mike Wolverton shot them down prior to trial. The defense had also subpoenaed one of his rape victims to testify, but again, the judge nixed it. There was also an unknown 4th possible suspect, according to the defense. The mystery man who had left his fingerprints and DNA at the scene. In their opening statements, the defense told the jury that they believed the prosecution got Della's time of death wrong. Della hadn't been killed the day she was found, they said. Police found her body at 3 a.m. Saturday, but the defense's theory was that Della actually died much earlier. The timeline was important because witnesses who had been drinking at the mechanic shop remembered seeing Joshua come in and out of the shop over several days, which is when the prosecution believed he had attacked Della. The defense wanted to shut that down.
And all the talk you will hear about from Beckett and his gang about Josh going back and forth to assault the body or to have sex with the body over a period of days, which is what they told the police, it's all simply false. It could not be. Hard science proves the time frame, the real time frame. You will hear from medical examiners that Ms. Brown had to have been dead for at least 12 and probably many more hours when she was seen by the police at 3 a.m.
Defense attorney Cindy Stroughton said the proof was in the autopsy photos. The redness on Della's body was caused by skin discoloration from the lack of blood flowing after her heart stopped beating and gravity took over. She said rigor mortis had set in.
Our expert, Dr. Norman Thompson, a forensic pathologist, will also tell you there is no evidence to support the state's theory that Ms. Brown was assaulted but did not die and lay comatose in the shed until later when Wade supposedly returned to kill her, which is what they told the grand jury. Under the state's theory, she was assaulted and incapacitated but not killed until shortly before her body was found. But the scientific evidence will not support the state's theory. The scientific evidence in this case will show that if Ms. Brown had been assaulted but not killed and had laid in the shed for a long period of time, her body would have made attempts to heal her wounds, not in ways that we could see, but in her tissues. And when the medical examiner looked at her tissues, there was no significant evidence of any attempt by her body to heal her wounds, which means that she was assaulted and killed at one time. Other medical evidence supports this as well. The pathologist who examined Ms. Brown's stomach contents at the autopsy found that she did not have a lot of blood in her stomach, and she would have if she'd lain there for hours and hours. She would have swallowed blood. And she also did not have blood in her lungs. If she had lain there for a length of time, she would have breathed blood into her lungs, aspirated, which would have shown up in the autopsy. And that is not there as well. What the evidence will show is that in all likelihood, Ms. Brown was raped and murdered within a short time frame, consistent with one attack.
Jurors heard testimony about the brutality of Della's murder. Her face had been beaten, her nose broken, her cheekbones broken, her eyeball displaced, her skull shattered. State medical examiner Frank Fallico testified that her head had internal bleeding. What he did not see, any defensive wounds on her body.
There were massive multiple fractures of the skull bone itself on the top of the head.
Now, the injuries to the face and the broken facial bones consistent with numerous blows to the face?
Yes.
Is it also consistent with the blows going to the back of the head and her face is on a hard object like the ground or something like that, where she's receiving the blows to the back of her head and her face is on the ground?
Yes, it is. It is consistent with a direction of force of back to front, with the face taking the brunt of blunt force injuries if, in fact, the face is against a hard object or if the head is slammed against a hard object in some way.
But the broken facial bones alone would not have killed Della right away, he said. He estimated that she had died about 24 hours before police discovered her body in the shed.
The blows to the top and back of the head, is that consistent with a rock, using a rock?
It is consistent with a rock, yes.
And you said the injuries to the face would not have caused immediate death?
In my opinion, they would not have caused immediate death. There are all kinds of examples of massive facial bone injuries. And remember, the skull, strictly speaking, as I'm illustrating with my left hand, is separate from the facial bone structure, which is attached to the front of the skull, and I'm illustrating this with my right hand. The facial bone structure can be severely damaged in many cases without causing instant death.
And I take it the cuts to the neck would not have caused death?
No.
Cuts to the leg would not have caused death?
No.
Of course. Okay. And how long after she received the blows to the head would she have died?
Very hard to put an exact time frame, but I will say minutes, and that could extend out to an hour. People with massive head wounds can live a lot longer than one would ordinarily think. There's a great deal of biologic variability with regard to the ability to live with massive incapacitating wounds. I have no way of knowing for sure how long she lived, but I believe it's a matter of minutes, and that could extend out to 59 minutes, as a matter of fact.
The prosecutor asked about blood first responders saw when they arrived at the scene.
Officers have testified and will testify in more detail later that there was blood, of course, found at the scene where the body was found, and there was some spattered blood on a door, and then there was a pool of blood on the floor, and the floor was such that there were boards and then dirt, so it could have been a rather deep pool of blood, okay? And they've described it as various coloring, some of it shiny, some of it red, some of it very, very dark, some of it dry. Can you make any estimates about time of death based upon the condition of blood?
That would be most difficult to do. There's no real good scientific evidence for that. There is one reference I read that blood turns black in 24 hours, but of course it depends upon the environment one finds the blood in, the dryness of the air, the humidity, and so forth. There's really no scientific evidence that I can give you without having seen the blood. That would make my testimony even less believable in terms of trying to use the appearance of the blood as a post-mortem clock for timing the death.
She then asked if he had been informed that Della may have been sexually assaulted.
Yes, I was.
And as a result of that, is there something else that you do during an autopsy?
Yes, I did an examination of the external genitalia and the anus.
Okay, and what did you find?
I did not find any evidence of injury to the external genitalia or to the anus.
All right, now...
recent injury, I may add.
Okay, now, is there any... does that surprise you? Can women be raped and you don't find injury?
The answer is yes, and no, it does not surprise me.
For instance, if a woman is highly intoxicated, is it possible that she wouldn't be injured?
Yes, even if she's not intoxicated.
Okay, or even passed out?
Yes, even if she's not passed out. Injuries roughly are found about 50% of the time in rapes, and I realize one has to define the quality of the rape. Some rapes are almost consensual, others are more violent, and there are a lot of variables associated with the presence of injuries on the genitalia or anus. Yes.
What about if she was dying? Is it possible that she wouldn't have injuries?
Yes, in my opinion, it might be more likely without injuries because there would be no resistance, obviously, and there would be dilatation, relaxation of the body, such that it would be less likely to cause the usual injuries that are associated with rape.
And if she was dead, would you not find it? You wouldn't be surprised if you found no injury?
Correct.
Under cross, the defense tried to cast doubt on the implication that a rock had been the murder weapon. Why was this a big deal? Because Joshua told others that he had hit Della on the head with a rock. The prosecution believed that statement was true and something only the killer could have known. The defense argued that Joshua was boasting and lying. In the defense's eyes, then, Della couldn't have been hit by a rock.
The simple fact of the matter is that you really don't have any examples that you can give us of objects that could have caused these wounds, do you?
Yes, as I've stated before, there are no pattern injuries that allows me to tell you an object that caused the wounds.
Okay, and so when you say in response to questioning by the state, oh, sure, it could have been a rock, it could have been a rock, it could have been a rock, that's not entirely accurate, is it?
It is, because I used the words consistent with. The answer is it could have been a rock. On the other hand, it might not have been. That's what consistent with means.
Well, let me just push you a little more on that, Dr. Falco. It depends a whole lot on what kind of rock, doesn't it?
You bet. It certainly does. And there are all kinds of rocks that would have sufficient mass and weight to cause these injuries.
Well,
all shapes of rocks.
And there's all kinds of rocks that have shapes that couldn't have caused these injuries.
That's true.
And in fact, if you've got shale or something like that, you've got rocks that are capable of making sharp force injuries, don't you?
I don't know that from personal experience, but I believe that to be true because when I lived in the West, I saw shale that had some pretty sharp edges.
All right.
Joshua's attorney grilled him about his testimony regarding the time of death.
So you are not offering an opinion if this body, as it was pronounced at 3:13 a.m. on Saturday the 2nd, you are not offering an opinion as to whether death most likely occurred Friday, Saturday, Wednesday. You're not offering an opinion, are you?
I am not offering an exact opinion of death, but I do take the information that the police arrived at the scene and discovered Rigor as putting the death time information a little more appropriately placed at roughly 24, maybe 36 hours prior to death.
The most likely, even without having collected the temperatures and looked at the crime scene and all that other stuff, you're saying that the most likely time, just based on what you know, would be Thursday night into Friday morning, correct?
The most likely time would be sometime around Thursday night. Given all the variables I spoke about, it could have been earlier or it could have been later, a matter of hours earlier or hours later, based solely on the science.
Joshua Wade was a young man, only 20 years old when Della Brown was murdered, and 22 years old when his trial began. But Joshua had developed a reputation as a serial killer in the media, even though he hadn't been charged with any other murders. The Anchorage Daily News reported at the time, quote, police were trying to tie Wade to the killings of 5 other Anchorage women found over an 18-month period, but no additional charges have been filed against him, and those crimes remain unsolved. At his trial, the defense complained about the ongoing coverage to the judge.
Your Honor, apparently Channel 13 has been showing a news clip all weekend that shows a photograph of Mr. Wade and myself at some point during the trial with the word serial killer under the photograph, saying they're doing a story apparently tonight. And apparently the comments are to the effect that concerns about a serial killer were relieved when Wade was arrested. Obviously, this causes us great concern. The clip apparently continues on to show a photograph of Ms. Brown and then a photograph of 4 other women whose murders are unsolved. Apparently, this has been shown starting Friday throughout the weekend, including last night. We renew our motion for a change of venue. This is the kind of thing that could easily taint even a juror who's trying very hard to follow the court's instructions. If they had their TV on during the news, and even if they turned the sound down when those came on, if it said, serial killer, easily could inadvertently be exposed to that kind of information.
The judge denied the defense's motion for a change in venue, although he agreed to remind the jury not to watch the media coverage or do any research on the case outside the courtroom. He told the jury to avoid Channel 13 altogether for the time being. The testimony continued. Jonathan McCune, also known as Peaches, was only 17 years old when he first met Joshua in September 2000. It was a day Jonathan tried hard to forget. It was the day he saw a dead body. Jonathan was there hanging out and helping in the mechanic shop with his roommate and others while his car was being worked on. He saw Joshua there and tried his best to avoid him. He explained why.
He was real quiet and kind of, sometimes he'd put on his hoodie and just sit there just for, long periods of times, and just, he wasn't, kind of, I'd say withdrawal, Sometimes he'd I'd look over at him, it just didn't seem like he was even there, you know. I mean, he was physically there, but, you know, he wasn't paying attention to none of us. And, you know, a lot of the time he'd just go lay down. There was a car, a classic car that was, I think, being restored. And he'd just go lay in there and, you know, I mean, other times he'd be hyper and giddy and, you know, when he was running around in and out of the shop, you know, with Jonathan, I guess going, you know, back and forth places and whatnot.
Did you actually see Wade going in and out of the shop?
Yes.
Okay. So did you notice then changes in his demeanor during the period that he was at the garage?
There was, you know, sometimes he'd be, you know, talkative and, you know, giddy, and sometimes he'd just be real, you know, I don't know, I guess, you know, withdrawal.
Okay.
I'm not real good with words, but
right.
Kind of creepy, you know.
He said at one point he went with Joshua to a nearby shed. He said Joshua was asking others in the group if they wanted to go somewhere with him, and they said no. He said he decided the shop was a little boring, so he decided to go.
Did he tell you where you were going?
No.
Did you have any idea?
No, I didn't even ask. I just kind of went. I didn't, you know.
So what happened?
Maybe we were going to the phone or, you know, something, because there was no phone in the shop.
So what happened when you got to the shed?
Well, when we were walking up to the shed, I was kind of itchy, you know, and I kind of started falling behind, and then, you know, I was thinking maybe, you know, he wanted to go smoke some weed or something, you know, because Dennis didn't, you know, allow anybody to smoke weed in the shop. And I fell kind of behind. He walked into the shed. He was in there for a few seconds, whatnot. And then I walked up to the door jamb, and he lit a lighter. And I looked down, and I seen a lady, and I automatically presumed she was dead.
Why was that?
And just because, you know, I don't know.
Can you describe for us what you saw exactly?
My first instinct. I just looked down, and I seen, you know, later on I found out it's Della Brown. It was her name. Her body laying there, and it took me maybe a second to realize what I was looking at, and I turned around and walked away.
All right. In that second, were you able to see any injuries to Della Brown?
I didn't see any specific injuries.
What'd you see?
Just, you know, I realized that I was looking at a person, you know, what, you know, instinct told me, you know, it was probably a dead person, and I just closed my eyes and turned around.
Did you see any blood?
I did see blood. I want to say, you know, it was, you know, that was like kind of a traumatic experience. You know, I've, you know, tried as hard as I could to block it all out. I mean, I want to say I've seen streaks, but I can't, you know, physically picture her face anymore. It's just, I blocked it out so much.
Do you remember if she was on her back or on her stomach?
I don't remember. I know that her face was facing directly towards me. She was down on the right-hand side. I know that.
Okay. Could you tell if any of her clothes were on or off?
I can't. I want to, you know, I've forced myself the past, you know, couple of weeks, a month or so to, you know, think about it and stuff. And I want to say she was wearing something pink, but, you know, I don't, just something that caught my eye, something pink, you know, some kind of pink clothing or something, but that's about it.
He said he can't say for sure if Joshua touched the body.
Okay, so you saw the body. How'd you react? What'd you do?
You know, I kind of, like, you know, freaked out in my mind, you know. I was just kind of instantly just shocked and turned around and started walking away.
Right, and what did Mr. Wade do?
He followed me and started asking me, you know, why you running away, you know, you're a pussy and, you know, you're a bitch and this and that. And, you know, asking me, you know, you can't handle it and stuff like that. And then he started asking me, who do you think did that? Who do you think did that? And, I was just, so many thoughts running through my mind. You know, I turned around and I was like, I think you did that. And then I caught what I said, and I was just like, you know, I was like, you know, but don't worry, I won't tell nobody if anybody asks me. And just kept walking. And then, he kept talking to me and stuff, but I was just, I don't know exactly what he was saying. Just, I was too shocked.
Back at the garage, Jonathan noticed Joshua appeared to be picking lint off of his sweatsuit. Joshua seemed annoyed. In hindsight, Jonathan said he believed it must have been blood on Joshua's clothes. Jonathan was a young man who had been part of the gang of troublemakers. He wore jail blues to testify in court, according to the Anchorage Daily News. If Joshua was indeed the killer, he had committed a violent crime against a complete stranger. So what was the motive? One of Joshua's friends testified that Joshua hated Alaskan Native women, but the defense attacked the witness during cross-examination.
Now, Mr. Knu, you testified yesterday that Joshua Wade told you he didn't like Native people. You recall that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to have you look at what you told the police about this. All right. The officer asked you, did he ever mention anything about disliking her or natives or anything? And what was your answer?
He always hated them.
And the officer asked you, how come?
I don't know.
No, I want you to read what you said.
He's always hated them.
And the officer asked you, why?
No, not really.
Keep going.
But I would have to say I'm not fond of them myself. I don't hate them. I dislike the majority of them because the state dumps money into them and they piss it away.
Keep reading.
Where was I?
Right here.
Yeah, okay. It dumps money into them, shovels it to them, truckloads of it. 9/10 of them piss it away.
Okay, keep going.
The liquor and drugs, bullshit of that nature. Here I am, just barely make it. Got a 4-month-old son, an old lady that rides my ass day in and day out for stupid things, and I'm lucky if I make $400 a month, and I don't get any help from anybody.
And the cop says, and then you kept going.
The shit I got to do on my own. I don't get any help from the state. The state's trying to bury me as it is for riding my ass without my driver's license. I can understand why. There's a law against it, but they want me to pay fines to do community service for little things that I've done and gotten in trouble for. But when I try to drive to do that, it's pretty much the only way I can get around. I get in trouble.
And then the officer asked you, well, what was Josh, was he feeling kind of the same way? Did he make any statements like that?
I can't say.
No, let's read what you said.
I honestly can't say how he felt about that. But I would say that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't like him. Because Josh, like myself, never got any handouts.
Now, what you were telling the officer was how you felt about natives. Isn't that right, Mr. Knut?
No. Not directly, because like I said, I don't hate them and I don't dislike them. And there's very few that I do dislike. And those are the ones that you see on the corners that are walking in and out of traffic, jaywalking through the middle of the road, walking sideways because they're drunk.
And for the record, would you please state your full name, spelling your last?
Rudolph J. DePice, D''A''Apice.
Della's boyfriend, Rudy, took the stand. According to the defense's theory, Rudy deserved to be a suspect in Della's murder. Rudy was a state witness, so the prosecution questioned him first. Rudy and Della had been together for 3 years before her death and lived together in a trailer park, unless they got in a fight and then Della retreated to her son's trailer.
Can you tell us what she was like? Was she a friendly person?
A very
friendly person?
Friendly, yes.
Rudy, who at the time worked at Midas Auto Services Company, told the jury about their life together, a life filled with lots of booze and occasional violence. He said he and Della drank together about 3 or 4 times a week. He said she would get fairly intoxicated about twice a week.
Did you, and I'm talking mostly around the time of her death, but did you have any firsthand knowledge of Della using any other drugs besides alcohol at that time?
I heard of it, but I never seen it.
Okay, so you don't have any first-hand knowledge of that? All right. Okay, now, Mr. DePease, I want to ask you some questions about your relationship with Della. You went out with her for 3 years. How would you characterize your relationship?
Pretty good.
Okay. Did you have some bad points, too?
Well, we fought, like everybody else does.
What would you fight over, usually?
It was usually when we were drinking. Yeah.
Okay. Were you fighting over major issues or just sort of drunken issues?
Drunken issues.
All right. Now, did these fights ever turn physical between the two of you?
Once.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you ever strike Della, like, with a closed fist during any of your fights?
No.
Okay. Did you ever, like, kick her?
No.
What about pulling her by the hair? Did you do that on occasion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many times would you say you did that?
Half a dozen, I don't know.
Okay. And why was that?
Because she was drunk, she'd get belligerent, you know.
Okay. So why did you feel the need to pull her hair then?
Dad or hit her, and I didn't want to hit her.
All right. Would you be drunk on these occasions too?
Me?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about the one time that you were talking about when you struck Della. Is that a time when you actually received a conviction for assault?
Yes.
It was St. Patrick's Day, and he said they had stayed up all night drinking. He said by midday the following day, they got into a drunken fight.
I made a bowl of soup. I brought it over to the table. I sat down. She picked up the soup and threw it in my face. That's what I do remember.
Right. And then what did you do after that?
Man, I pushed her like that. Just natural reaction.
Okay. And where did you push her?
In the dining room.
No. Where on her body did you push her?
Face.
All right. Really hard?
I believe so.
Okay. And what did you do after that?
Well, she fell down. And I think I slapped her a few more times.
Do you remember where?
In the face.
What other moments do you remember actually putting your hands on Della?
I remember slapping her a couple of times when she was on the carpet.
Okay. And why did you do that?
Because she was just getting irate and crazy.
Okay. This was after she'd already been injured, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your purpose in doing that? Trying to hold her down?
I was just still mad at her.
Okay. So you were acting out of anger still?
Jurors saw photographs of the soup dish Della threw and bloody photos of her face after Rudy had hit her. The blow was hard enough that her tooth punctured her lip. Her neck was bruised, although Rudy couldn't remember what happened to cause that injury. Another person who lived in the trailer park was called to the stand. Steve Lupian, a paramedic, was Della's friend and neighbor. Steve was a source of comfort to her. He said she was sad. She carried a lot of weight on her shoulders from a troubled childhood.
Did she talk to you about her suicide attempt in August?
Yeah, we talked about just not so much her suicide, but her depression, the problems she was going through. And she'd come over and listen to music that would make her feel good. I'd play her some music, make her feel good.
But you could tell that she was depressed and had made this suicide attempt.
As I say, I don't know it personally, but I heard about it through other sources.
All right.
Steve had been one of the last people to see Della alive. On Thursday evening, Steve recalled it well because he was watching the TV show ER. Della came over around 9:30 p.m. She was sober and happy and in need of cash. He said Della had to walk wherever she went because of a prior DWI. She respected the law. She would not drive, he told the jury. She was trying to clean up her record.
She came over to borrow some money. She needed some money.
Do you remember how much she borrowed?
$10.
Do you know what it was for?
I never asked. She always paid it back on time.
Okay.
We were friends.
All right. Now, aside from drinking at home around the trailer park or at Pancho Villa's, did you ever know to go anywhere else to drink, like sheds or other places like that?
That would not be Della, no.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Levine, you mentioned that she spent time at Rudy's house. Who's Rudy?
Rudy was her boyfriend, long-time relationship.
Do you know his last name?
I really never learned his last name. I just spoke to him with respect, calling him Rudy.
Okay. Do you know if Della had a rocky relationship with Rudy?
Yes, they had an interesting relationship, yes.
Okay, what do you mean by interesting?
Like any other couple, they'd have their fights, they'd have their moments, they'd have their good times.
Okay, and did you ever see Rudy yourself? Did you ever see Rudy strike Della?
Never in front of me, no.
Okay. Do you know if she fought physically with Rudy?
Yes.
Okay, did you ever see any, arguments or fights happening between Rudy and Della, out in the open, out in the trailer park?
No, they kept it mainly inside the trailers. They didn't make a public display of their disaffection for each other.
Okay. Now, the last time that you saw Della, when she came to borrow money from you, could you tell if she was sober or intoxicated?
She was very non-sober. I mean, very not. Yeah, she was sober. She was very sober.
She was very sober.
Very sober.
Okay.
Very alert.
Did she seem to be in a good mood?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, do you know if Della would ever go off drinking with strangers?
Can't see that. No.
Why do you say that?
She was very shy, taken back, very cautious, even in a drunken state.
All right. And do you know if she ever accepted rides from strangers?
Can't see that. No, that would not be in her nature.
Okay.
Under cross, Steve testified more about Della's personality. Remember, there had been no defensive wounds found on her body.
In your years of knowing Ms. Brown, it appears that you've come to an opinion that if someone tried to make her do something that she didn't want to do, that she would be resistant to that. Isn't that right?
To the best of her small abilities, yes. She was a small person.
Right. But she wouldn't have gone willingly with a stranger. Is that right?
No, I cannot see that.
Right. And she would have tried to resist at least.
To her best ability, she was a small-framed woman. It would have been hard for her, but she would have tried.
All right. And I believe that she would, in your experience with her, if she had been drinking, she might not be physically aggressive, but she might yell and be vocal. Is that right?
I would hope so.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you told the police back when they talked to you, that she could get vocal. You didn't think she'd hit somebody, but she could be vocal if she'd been drinking.
I think vocal would be more her style.
All right. And it's true that in the past that Ms. Brown would come to your home to get away from Mr. DePeace, isn't that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. She'd come to your home to get away from screaming and fighting and that kind of thing.
Whatever the situation was at the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did she ever come to your home when she was crying and upset?
Yes.
Under the state's redirect, Steve said this when asked if he ever noticed any injuries on Della when she would come over after a fight with Rudy.
You know, I would look at her very thoroughly, because if there was any concern for her safety, if there was any injuries, I would have called the police.
And you never saw any?
Never saw any.
Greg McCrary spent more than 25 years working as an FBI agent. He studied criminal justice and had a master's degree in psychology. Since 1995 to present day, he had been a consultant doing behavior criminology. Joshua's defense called him as an expert witness during the 10-week trial.
And what do you understand the purpose of your testimony here today to be?
The purpose of my testimony is to discuss the issues or the continuing problems of false confessions. That's one part of it, and the other part is to discuss the dynamics of rapists and anger rapists in particular.
Are you here today to tell a jury that you believe that Joshua Wade's confession is a false confession?
No, I'm not here to express any beliefs along that line at all. That's certainly their job, not mine. So.
You were talking about whether a confession can be corroborated by looking at whether there's exclusive knowledge that's released. Does it make a difference when you're making that assessment what the crime scene itself was?
In what regard?
Well, if it was a scene that many people had access to, or only the person involved in the homicide had access to.
Sure. If other people had access to the crime scene, then we don't have exclusivity anymore. Then you've compromised, or exclusivity's been compromised, because it isn't something that only the killer or only the investigators know. If other people have been to that scene or seen it or been exposed to it for, one way or another, then you've lost that exclusivity.
All right. And for example, if the crime scene involved a body that lay for 24 hours, for example, in a relatively public area, an area where people could go and see it, how does that affect, if later someone makes some description of the body, how does that affect your assessment?
Well, it affects the assessment because you have to understand, how did this person come by the knowledge? When talking about exclusivity, we're talking about something that only the killer would know or only the investigators know from being at the scene or understanding how the crime was committed. If other people have been to the scene, then they might know something from the scene. They might know just whatever they saw, whatever they might observe, and they could actually contaminate the scene, maybe leave something there that is artifact to the crime. I mean, it's not evidence of the crime itself, but they may contaminate the scene in some way. So the problem is other people have seen it. They'll know, say, maybe the position of the body or describe either parts of the crime, the victim, or other mundane details. That's the other thing you look for that helps corroborate an investigation. It would be compromised in that situation, such as mundane details about the scene or what was there or something like that. If other people have been there, then you've lost that exclusivity, and it really doesn't mean all that much.
He testified that sometimes men gave false confessions in order to look tough. He also warned the jury to be wary of informants' motives. Why would they want to help the police? Are informants, like Timothy Beckett, who secretly recorded Joshua, simply trying to be good citizens? Or do they have ulterior motives? In their opening statements, the defense had argued that Della's killer may have been convicted rapist Gregory Poindexter, who attacked Native women. He was serving 30 years in prison for raping 5 women from August 2000 to January 2001. Della had been found dead on September 2nd, 2000. Greg McCrary testified that Della fit into the victim profile of Poindexter's other victims.
She was Alaska Native.
Yes, she was.
She was 33 years old, intoxicated.
Yes.
And we don't really know for sure where she was when she was attacked. Then, did she fit in terms of her body was found in an area near a bar?
Yes.
Did she fit into an area that Poindexter, from your review of the records, would have been familiar with?
Yes, he lived not far from that shed, a couple of blocks, as I recall.
And the time of her assault, as best we can estimate, does that fit into the time frame as well?
Yes, it does.
And the condition her body was found in with her pants removed, does that fit?
That's consistent. Yes, it is.
And the medical examiner's report that there was semen in her vagina and anus, does that fit into the pattern as well?
It could. It certainly could. We've seen, again, semen in one of the cases, but not the others. So it certainly could. Yeah. The thing, again, keep in mind, you have to always try, and this is where victimology, you're trying to reconstruct the victim's movements prior to the crime, are important, because It could be artifact. It's possible this could be artifact. It could be the killer's semen, but if she had had consensual sex with someone prior to this, then that's something that could mitigate against that. We don't know.
She appeared to have obviously been beaten, and was the physical beating to her face quite similar to the beating that E.K. suffered?
Yes, it appeared to be, yes.
After you made that analysis, Mr. McCrary, and reviewed all of these similarities, did you come to a determination of whether Mr. Poindexter should have been ruled out as a suspect in this case?
My opinion, he should be considered to be a suspect in the case.
Thank you, sir.
What would the jury think of the expert witness's testimony? Could Gregory Poindexter be the killer? And that's all for this episode. The trial continues next week. This episode was researched and written by Gabrielle Roussin. If you'd like to hear these episodes without the ads and hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes and subscribe to our weekly newsletter about interesting court cases, check out our Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.